Welcome back, Spooky Soul. Now, it's been a minute since I recorded anything. The last video you saw was actually filmed back in November. So this video is just going to be a quick run through of what I have read, what I've DNF'd. So grab yourself a cup of tea, get somewhere cozy, and let's jump into it. I hope you're nice and comfy. Now, I really did enjoy this book, even though in my last video I gave it a bit of a roasting. It was a bit glitchy to get started, and I may be unique in this, I may not be, but I did love the way that the story was written. I loved the world, I loved the characters, but there was just a few places along the line where I felt that I had missed something of the story because it jumped, or there was just not enough description or information about what was happening from one scene to the next. So I did find myself having to go back and reread a couple of sections or sentences just to try and make sure that I hadn't missed anything. And I hadn't. I think a lot of this could slightly have been tweaked, just ever so slightly. I'm not dissing the book at all. I really loved the story. I'm so excited to get stuck into book 3 whenever that comes out, because I did find myself getting invested in the story and the characters. But to get going, I really did struggle because there was a lot of sort of jumps between things. So I found myself constantly trying to earnestly read the next section to see if there was a drop of information to catch up with what had happened. And that seemed to be the case in some circumstances, but not others. So I must confess, sometimes when I read this, I would find it a little bit more hard going on my brain to just try and connect the dots. I loved the fact that it built up into such a crescendo at the end. You really understood Quicksilver's character and the deprivation in which he had survived and lived through, which makes sense reading the beginning again. In another way, I kind of think I might reread this, knowing what I know now, going back and seeing if it makes more sense. I found that similar in the Harry Potter books, in that some things were just kind of assumed that you knew, and then for a first time reader you're like, what? I don't understand that. I found that with this. Going into it, knowing that so many people loved it, I was really excited about it, but I was a bit apprehensive about a quarter of the way through, just because it felt a bit slow in places and other places felt really quick and you kind of were rushed through them, where they could have been a bit more elaborated, a bit more story driven, rather than just let's do a filler piece to get from here to here. Overall, I really loved this. I would say, despite the glitches, and it could just be my reading experience, it could be different for everybody else. Like I say, this is my opinion. It doesn't have to be fact, or you don't have to agree with it at all. You are free to have your own opinion. I would say 4 out of 5 for this one. I then went straight into Brimstone, as you do, because I was just lucky enough to know that this was coming out, so I got this one ready, and they actually match with their design and end pages, and the sprayed edges are lush. This one smells incredible. I don't know whether it was somebody that packed it or whether it's just what they sprayed on it, but it smells incredible. This one doesn't smell at all. So I really enjoyed the fact that this one had a beautiful scent to it. So we started off with this one 3 days later after Quicksilver ends. And again, I was kind of a little bit bummed with this one, in that the end of this one leaves it that one of the evil people has been destroyed. I'm not going to say too much because I don't want to give loads of spoilers. But this book, I kind of assumed that the second of the 3 would be destroyed in this one, and it wasn't. So I don't know whether there's going to be 4 books in this series or 3. If there's 3, it doesn't make sense that it doesn't progress as this one does. Like, this one's facing the enemy, learning who they are, having obstacles, and then annihilating them at the end. This one, you've already got the setup of Quicksilver, so you expect this one to be rushing straight through, picking up where it left off, and essentially assassinating the next second of the 3. But no, this one drags out a lot. Again, it's good storyline, there's a lot of side quests that happen, but not all of it makes sense again. I'm yet to pass judgment on the whole series because it's unfinished, but at the moment, this one feels a little bit like it could have been a little novella rather than a huge chunky book. Not to say that there wasn't some good parts in it. I mean, there's one scene that really ripped my heart out, and for those of you that love furry animals, you will not enjoy that. I was weeping. I hate it when animals get in peril or danger, so I really wasn't enjoying that, but I loved how it got resolved and sorted. The one mysterious character that helps Ceres through the story of this, I really enjoyed his support, his storyline. It again was a little bit random because he's not in this one at all, but he kind of, through the storyline, makes quite a prominent show in this. There were certain elements in here of things that happened to the characters that I really enjoyed, and it kind of added on to the storyline of Quicksilver. Again, I got to the end of this just wanting more, wanting slightly more to happen. There was quite a lot of court intrigue, backstabbing, political negotiations with this one. It wasn't quite so much like on the firing line of fighting evil. It was more like, yeah, negotiations and court intrigue. But again, it makes sense because it's a filler book. It's a book between the first one and the third one. So maybe it could just be the fact that it was just intended to be that, just to continue the story and to fill in the gaps. So I will be continuing the series. I did enjoy it. The spice and the romance between Ceres and Quicksilver is much better in this one, in my opinion, because you've had their epic battle scene and their romance blossom 3/4 of the way through this to the end. You then go into this book invested, and that's what I struggled with this book. It kind of felt a bit forced. It felt a bit like it has to be introduced somewhere in order for the story to progress, but it felt very contrived and forced. But then when we go into Brimstone, there is love there is romance, there is the undying background of Quicksilver and his connection to Ceres. And that element of the story I really love, and I'm looking forward to delving more into that, because there is a character connected to Quicksilver who is much more older and ancient than Ceres and Quicksilver, and it ties in with their love story so beautifully, and I want to discover more about that. So I am excited to get stuck into book 3 whenever it comes out, but it's going to be a while because Brimstone only came out in November 2025. Thoroughly enjoyed the series on a whole, so if you've been on the fence about buying it or picking it up, I would say give it a go. It hasn't shook my world yet, but sometimes these kinds of books have a way of catching up with you once you get further into the story. You end up loving it, you end up rereading it and delving into it a little bit more. So off the bat, 4 out of 5 on both of them. This one may be 3 out of 5 just because it's a filler book. Overall, yes, definitely pick them up if you're on the fence about them. So after finishing Brimstone, I was in a little bit of a slump, and I thought I would change genre completely, get away from high fantasy sword fighting and go for a bit of pirate adventure. And a lot of people have said that The Ever King was really good, so I picked this one up and I gave it a go. But I got to chapter 7 and I've already DNF'd it. I only read it for a day. It gave me Hook from Ever After vibes. Like, oh hello love, kinda, come on. It's like a fake British accent. That's at least what happened in my head when I was reading the Ever King's character. It started off well, but it was very much reminding me of Pirates of the Caribbean. The little girl and boy start off when they're young. He is in prison for being an otherworld character from underneath the sea of the mer people. He's not a mermaid, he's human, but he's from the ever seas, so he's the Ever King's son. The king from the Ever Seas has been executed, and his son, being young, is just locked up and is basically waiting trial and banishment. The daughter of the king of the land is telling him a story through the bars of the prison, and she makes him or buys him a necklace that he treasures, quite obviously. And in exchange for the necklace, he gives her a coin. Anyway, she obviously is really upset and sad that their friendship is over, that he's going to be sent away and she will never see him again. So she rushes away from the prison, nearly getting caught by the guards that have come to collect him. And she, in her haste, drops the coin that the boy gave her, and it smashes into pieces on the ground. But the talisman, or the magic that's in the coin, then goes up her arm as she goes to reach for the coin, and she gets a tattoo of the same design imprinted onto her skin. Move on 10 years later, she's now in her mid-teens, early 20s, and it's the festival, and it's marking the 10-year anniversary of the Ever-King Kingdom being locked under their powers of the land. It's a celebration for the land people to know that they're not under tyranny, they're not under attack anymore, but she always feels this foreboding pull and tension because she knows that that little boy that she knew when she was young is most probably trapped under the sea and has been there for 10 years. She goes recklessly with her friends out to the water. She doesn't know that she has a deep connection to the ocean, and that because she has this connection with this boy, she unwittingly goes into the water, has a swim, and she has that piece of treasure still on her. And it calls, it ripples through the ocean, and it calls to the kingdom beneath the sea that's been trapped. And the water gate is opened. She doesn't know that it's happened. She just feels this eerie moment of magic ripple through the ocean. She gets out and she resumes the rest of the party going. But the Ever-King that has now grown up into a man, who was the little boy, has rallied his people, has started setting sail from the under ocean and making his way through the Watergate up to the land to wreak havoc. And that's where I stopped it, because he seems to be quite a bit of an idiot. He's quite over piratey. He's written very much, like I said, like Hook from Ever After. If you've ever seen that show, you kind of know that. He's kind of like East End British, hello love kind of accent. He says love at the end of every sentence, which was really grating me straight off the bat. And it was just quite forced, in my opinion. Now, it could be that that mellows and gets a bit nondescript through the rest of the book and it doesn't become a problem. But I found it that it grated on me straight off from the get-go. It also flips between her storyline and his. So every chapter, you're jumping, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And it didn't matter so much in Brimstone and Quicksilver because it flowed. This one, it's so disjointed that I'm just not enjoying it. So as you can tell, I may well pick it up in the future and try again. But so far, I've got this really annoying accent in my head every time I read what he's saying. I'm not invested in the characters. There's not enough draw to make me interested in reading it. But if you have read it and you felt the same to begin with and it got better, please let me know, because I'm all for giving a book another chance. I also am going into 2026 with my reading goals being much more strict, in that I'm not going to force myself to read a book if I'm not enjoying it. And this one, I just wasn't enjoying it. There were many other books that, as you can see, I'd like to get to. So do I want to spend all my time forcing myself to read a book I'm not enjoying? No. So that one, at the moment, is on the DNF pile. It's going to go back in the bookshelves, and I may well pick it up in the future. But that doesn't mean to say that I haven't enjoyed some other books this month. And one that I really ripped through was He Sees You When You're Sleeping by Alta Hensley. This one I just spent a few days reading. I've tabbed quite a lot of it. I love the sprayed edges, they're kind of cool. I don't know quite what the skull and crossbones with the Christmas decoration has to do with the story. Other than it's set in Christmas time, there's nothing to do with skull and crossbones, but I guess it kind of just looks spooky and creepy. This I loved. Just raunchy and fun. It's not taken seriously, but I did still find myself with my heartbeat kind of racing a little bit, and I love that. So I would say 4.5 out of 5 for this one. If you want something that's just a little bit of a quick read, little bit raunchy, set around Christmas time, so if you do want to read it, I'd read it soon. The setting is a little bit off-putting if it isn't round Christmas. It's based around a girl who is a influencer online. She sells jewellery of a major brand, and she had a traumatic event happen to her a few years previously, which resulted in her living alone, basically trying to make ends meet, and her job is her lifeline. But she has a secret, and that is that in the evenings when she's not online promoting the jewellery that she is an ambassador for, she has a secret online account on a website, a girl cam essentially. She has obviously a darker side to her, which is perfectly fine. I'm all for that. I thought it was really exciting to know that about the character. And you get to experience her two sides of her world meld into one person. And I love that because sometimes a character can be quite straight-laced or quite obvious. This one, she does show the two sides of this character, and I really enjoyed that. And she also shows the two sides of the male character in this, and he is a firefighter. He's been watching our main character for many years. Turns out that he knows her a lot longer than she thought he did. He happens to bump into her and starts to make a connection with her in real life rather than just observing her from afar. Little does she know, but there's a character called Winter Watcher who starts chatting to her and following her on her online profile, not just on the jewellery, but on the Dark Secrets platform, which is where she goes in the evenings. And she starts to have fantasies, and she starts to form feelings for this person online, as well as the guy that's actually been a close neighbour who looks out for her. So it's essentially her exploring her sexual fantasies, her desires, her real in-life sort of adventures, or trusting other people since this tragic thing that happened to her years ago. Her world being quite small at the beginning of this book, and then it opens up as she learns to explore her emotions, explore things that she wouldn't allow herself to get back into because life had hurt her before, and just taking risks. It's really good. It's just a quick romantic fantasy, really. Nothing great shakes, no adventure happens other than the tryst between her and these two men. Enjoy reading this if you just want a little bit of fun, a little bit of Christmas story, and a little bit of extra alternative lives. And the book that I'm currently reading is In the Veins of the Drowning by Callie Cassidy. I am 136 pages in. I've got my blue tabs to go with the theme of the mermaids. This is really good so far. It's really well written. I'm finding that I'm being drawn in with the writing style. I'm not questioning what's happening. It's flowing really nicely. And it does give me vibes of Little Mermaid / being a prisoner, as if she was to live on the land and she wasn't allowed back to the sea. So it's giving me those kind of vibes. The main character is a siren, and she has been hidden in this kingdom since she was young. She doesn't have many memories, or she remembers what she was told from a young age. The king, who is her, she's the ward of the king, he's very cruel, very hard, and she lives in a very small world in the kingdom, in that she doesn't speak up, she has no rights, she's told what to do left, right and centre, and her only way of escape is to concoct a rather bizarre and tragic scenario. But it ends up going a bit haywire and someone ends up dead. So then she has to flee because she's going to be, tried for treason and murder. So the plan of her escape goes a bit awry, but she ends up escaping anyway, but with someone you don't expect, or rather, she doesn't expect them. We as the reader assume that something's going to go down because there is a visitor on the same evening of her betrothal or her wedding prenuptials. She's supposed to be forced to marry this guy. She doesn't really want to, and he ends up, And so she escapes with this new character who's come to the kingdom. He's a rival king. He's a much more kind and just king compared to the one that she's grown up with. And obviously he's hunky, he's young, and he's single. So she ends up going on a ship with him, sailing across to his kingdom, and they are currently in a blood bond because that was the only way to get her out of the kingdom. I can't remember what was happening. I think she was ill or she got stabbed and she was bleeding out. And so the only way to save her was to have a blood bond with this new king. But it turns out that the blood bond is not sealing properly. Normally it takes 2 days, and she is on day 3 and she's still puking her guts up. And if she's too far away from this other guy, Theo is the king's name, they both get violently ill. And that's not what should normally happen according to the blood rites or the blood bond. So her handmaiden, who'd had it done previously 10 years before, she was married and blood bonded to Theo's bodyguard. And then Agatha, who is the main woman's, what's her name? Imogen. Imogen is the siren. So Imogen's handmaiden, Agatha, used to be married to Theo's bodyguard. But then they got separated or split, or somebody found out that Agatha was also a siren, so she had to flee. So they broke the blood bond. She fled to this neighbouring kingdom and became Imogen's handmaiden, governess, whatever. But now that Theo's back, he's obviously brought his commander with him. And so Agatha and, I can't remember the guy's name, but they get thrown back together. Even though they've been apart for 10 years, they still love each other. They still feel the tug of the blood bond, even though theirs has been severed. They had to go through a ceremony to sever it. But Agatha knows that this isn't correct. This blood bond shouldn't be acting this way. So something's amiss. Theo, on the other hand, couldn't ignore Imogen's plight to escape, and he was just so angry and frustrated by the way in which she'd been treated, not only recently, but all her life, as their conversations have flowered and opened. So he couldn't let her stay there. He had to save her. And he's obviously attracted to her, and he knows a lot more about her than she knows, because he keeps looking at her as if he knows her already and she's not understanding why. But Theo is already promised to another. So they've just arrived back at his kingdom. His fiancée has arrived with her entourage and family in the hopes that the marriage ceremony will happen within the next month. However, Imogen is still bloodbound to him. They can't be outside of the same room for too long, otherwise they both end up being really ill. And they're currently in a predicament, thinking that the bad king that Imogen has just escaped from will be coming to claim her back, because he doesn't want to let anything go that is his. So that's where we're up to with this one. So if you have read this book, let me know what your thoughts are. Did you enjoy it? I think it's book 1 of 3, but I could be wrong on that one. I'm really enjoying it. It's a very different take on sort of mermaid siren story so far. There are these mysterious sort of ocean wraiths that apparently are like really creepy killers that she's just sort of seen over the side of the boat when she's been arriving. So I'm intrigued to find out whether they come and try and kill her, or she somehow gets involved with them a bit later. Something creepy is going to happen, I can tell with that. And I hope Agatha and the commander get back together. And I'm just enjoying the dialogue and the sort of the moody stares between Theo and Imogen, because Imogen can't stand Theo, but she knows he's got a good heart, and that's unusual for her to say something to someone, especially a man, and to actually be listened to and cared for. So she's finding that a little bit weird. Theo, on the other hand, really respects her for being so strong, even though she's been constantly crushed and sort of obliterated and had no choice of her own. She's still got very strong will, is not afraid to tell him the truth, and he finds that very refreshing. He's just in awe of her, even though he doesn't say much. So he's a bit broody, she's a bit bitchy, but so far it's a really good ride. And that leads me up to the fact that I've got the rest of this book to read, plus 3 more, because I set myself the challenge to read 4 books. Now, oh actually no, I'm wrong. I've read this one, this is book 2, so I've got to read 2 more books by the end of the month. I am pretty good going already reading these 2, despite the fact that it's been a really busy month and I haven't had much time to read. This one would have been book 3, but like I said, I DNF'd it. And these 2 don't really count because I kind of finished this one at the beginning, but it wasn't like a whole book, so I'm not allowing these to be in the read. I could say book 1, book 2, book 3, and maybe just have one more book, but I kind of wanted to set myself the task of like 4 whole books. So with that being said, thank you for joining me. It was a little bit of a ramble, I know, but I just wanted to keep in the loop with what I've been reading, what I've been loving, what I haven't been loving. And until next time, take care of yourself. And don't forget that this channel is for the dreamers and the witches and the wanderers, and that these are our enchanted pages. Bye.